If you teach 8th grade science in a public school, you already know this feeling. Georgia Milestones is coming. Your students may be a little stressed. You're definitely stressed. And suddenly everything feels like a drill and kill test prep. Lots of meetings, lots of data analysis, lots and lots of admin oversight, which can be very annoying. But here's what I learned in my classroom. Test prep does not have to be boring to be effective. In fact, the more engaging and strategic I made it, the better my students performed. Today, I'm going to walk you through exactly how I make Georgia Milestones prep fun while still targeting the real problem areas: test stamina, reading comprehension, vocabulary, constructed responses, and overall engagement. Oh my gosh, that last one is a big one because it is an uphill climb. Let's start with mindset because this changed everything for me. At first, I treated test prep like something separate from real science. The moment I stopped doing that and started embedding standards review into games, labs, and collaborative work, student buy-in really skyrocketed. Instead of saying we're reviewing for the test, I started saying, today we are doing a challenge, or you are going to beat the clock, or let's see which team can crack the code. Same standards, different energy. Now let's talk about the big struggles. First, test stamina. Our students are not used to sitting and reading dense passages for long periods of time. So I started building stamina in small, intentional ways. Once or twice a week, I give them a milestone style passage with 5 to 8 questions, and we treat it like training. I literally call it brain training. I read passages as a whole group. I always start with expectations, then begin reading. The passage is displayed on the board, and students have a printed copy in front of them. This is so important. It's almost like I teach my class where all students receive those instructional accommodations that are in a lot of our students' IEP documents. But that's another conversation. For example, I will say, okay, class, I will read the first paragraph. Then you all can take turns reading aloud. I want you to look for bolded words in the text and underline the information that follows the word. I do not call on specific students to read, as some students are uncomfortable reading aloud. I provide some type of token or incentive at the end for those who read. I feel like this creates a form of trust in the classroom. And, you usually have the same students who volunteer, but that's okay. I want students to feel comfortable reading and encourage them to do so. Then we gradually increase the length. It's like conditioning for a sport. They start to see it as progress instead of punishment. Again, creating that sense of community in the classroom. Next, reading comprehension and vocabulary. Science is a huge vocabulary area. So I make vocabulary interactive for the students. I add vocabulary resources on Google Classroom, which is what we use, anytime that new topics are introduced. One of my favorite sites is wordwall.com. This site has a plethora of interactive vocabulary activities that can be assigned, including drag and drop, games, and graphic organizers. Of course, this site has a free version, but the paid version does offer a few more options, such as being able to track student activity, record their grades or scores on the assignment, and you can create your own custom activities. If you just want to use the free version, it's great as well. You can search for topics that other teachers have created. One of the ways that I use this site is as an activator at the beginning of class. I put up the activity on the board and I encourage the students to take turns coming up one by one to do whatever the activity requires of them. Other fun sites for students are Quizlet, Kahoot, GymKit, Bookit, and Wayground. Of course, I'm sure there are many more, but these are just a few that I have used in my classroom throughout the years. Another tool I rely on heavily is virtual science teachers. I just found out about this free website a couple of years ago, and I have been using it religiously. No, I'm not a paid ambassador, but it is amazing. I love it. My students love it. It's engaging, it's fun, there's sound, all sorts of things that capture their attention. The interactives, bell ringers, and escape rooms are great to use during the milestone season. The best part about this website is that everything is already made for you. All you have to do is copy and paste the link for the activity in whatever LMS platform your district uses for your students. Amazing. The bell ringers are perfect for daily spiral review. Instead of using random warm-ups, I use standard aligned questions that mirror the rigor of Georgia Milestones. It keeps content fresh without overwhelming students, and it builds consistency day after day. It's also important to use different interactives to reinforce concepts students struggle with earlier in the year. For example, Virtual Science Teachers has many. There are other sites that your district may have purchased subscriptions to, such as Gizmo, such as Discovery Education, many others. And there are also free websites such as PhET, which has great simulations. If I notice data analysis or great graph interpretation is weak, I'll pull an interactive that lets them practice in a more hands-on way before we move on into test style questions. Escape rooms are game changers. Virtual Science Teachers has some great ones. There are other sites such as Kessler, which has some great escape rooms. And you do have to pay for Kessler. Virtual Science Teachers has free activities. I use them for review days tied to specific domains like force and motion, waves, energy, or matter. Each challenge requires students to apply content knowledge and not just memorize definitions, which is so important. They have to read carefully, follow directions, analyze information, and justify answers, which mirrors exactly what they'll need to do on the test. It keeps engagement high, but it's still rigorous. And that balance is everything during test season. Now let's talk constructive responses, which is usually the biggest struggle. Instead of just giving them open-ended questions and hoping for the best, I explicitly teach a response structure. We practice rewriting the question into the answer. We underline the claim. We highlight the evidence. We circle the reasoning. Sometimes I turn constructed response practice into a peer grading activity using a rubric. Students score sample answers and explain why one response earns a 4 and another earns a 2. This isn't to break anyone down, it's just for students to see the difference, which ultimately improves their writing dramatically. Review games are also a lifesaver during milestone season. I rotate between Bookit, GymKit, and quick whole class competitions such as Jeopardy. But here's the key. The questions have to be standards aligned and rigorous. I mix in scenario based questions, data analysis, and vocabulary in context. And yes, we still do labs, but I turn them into test prep opportunities. After a lab, I'll give them milestone style questions based on the investigation. They analyze data tables, they write claims and evidence, they explain variables. It connects hands on learning to assessment language. And that bridge is so powerful. Finally, I directly teach test taking strategies. We practice eliminating wrong answers. We talk about common distractor patterns, and I show them how to look for extreme language like always and never. We practice breaking apart multi step questions. Lastly, I normalize the struggle. I tell them it's okay if the first read doesn't make sense. Strong test takers reread, they slow down, and they annotate. The biggest shift for me was realizing this. Engagement and rigor are not opposites. When students feel confident and involved, they usually perform better on high stakes tests. Georgia Milestones prep does not have to mean worksheets every day. It can mean structured practice, intentional strategy, collaborative review, and creative reinforcement. In my classroom, once I blended mindset, strategy, and fun review structures, I saw more confidence, stronger constructive responses, and better stamina overall. And honestly, the classroom felt lighter during test season. If you're gearing up for milestones, I hope this gave you practical ideas you can implement immediately in your classroom. If this was helpful and you want more middle school science ideas, strategies, and real classroom tested tips, make sure you subscribe. I share what actually works with my eighth graders so you don't have to reinvent the wheel. We're in this together. Feel free to leave a comment with a strategy that works for you. Don't forget to like and subscribe. Thanks for watching.